California has long depended on inmate labor to fight the massive wildfires that happen here every year. And although they get hands-on training and experience in prison, formerly incarcerated firefighters have a hard time pursuing this as a career. A group called the Forestry and Fire Recruitment Program is set out to change this, and since 2015 has helped hundreds of former inmates land high-paying jobs on fire crews. I'm in Pasadena, California to meet them.
My name is Royal Ramey, and I am the Chief Program Officer of the Forestry and Fire Recruitment Program. And what I do is help people that served in California conservation camps, they call them fire camps, to be able to transition over to the fire service professionally.
So what's going on today?
Today we're conducting a work capacity test where all the wildland firefighters with the Forest Service, they use this test to make sure that you're fit for duty. Every firefighter has to do it.
Almost everyone here today was once incarcerated. Aside from the PAC test, participants also complete classroom training as part of their certification.
All right, everybody gather around.
Gotta go!
The PAC test is 3 miles, 45 minutes, 45 pounds on your back. If you get back to me under 45 minutes, you pass the test. You will be issued a qualification card. If you come in at 45 minutes or more, I'll see you next time.
My mom died at 9. We were moved around from family to family. We grew up in foster care. At the age of 18, I was hungry. Stole a pizza. When I stole this pizza, that's what got me 3 years in prison. And then I got offered fire camp, got introduced to fire camp. Went to fire camp. I went on my first fire, I'll never forget it. It was nighttime. I remember how it looked, how it smelled, helicopters flying. I fell in love with it immediately. And I started getting good at it.
A lot of folks, we have the opportunity when you go to prison to go to these fire camps where you go to fight fires, and they give you basic training. Once upon a time, the fire camps were like a third of the workforce when it comes to fighting wildland fires.
Climate change and historic drought are driving hotter and more unpredictable fire seasons across the American West. In recent years, California has seen some of the most destructive blazes on record, with more than 12 million acres burned in the last decade alone. That's nearly double the acres burned in the previous decade. Fighting these epic fires requires thousands of personnel, and the state depends on incarcerated men and women to work as firefighters, organized into 35 camps across California.
What fire camp taught me, I'm using it to this day, and I'm providing for my family. I have a career, all based off fire camp.
Fire camps give Royal and Demetrius structure and skills and help them find their calling. But critics of the program say it also amounts to a kind of indentured servitude. Participants risk their lives but are paid less than $6 per day, plus $1 to $2 per hour during active fires. And their conviction histories render many of these individuals ineligible for professional firefighting careers once they're out.
You don't have a true pathway to be able to get employment once you participated in the camps.
Through sheer persistence, Royal figured out how to cut through some of the red tape. After successfully finding paid work as a firefighter, in 2015, Royal and his co-founder Brandon Smith began building out a playbook for other fire camp veterans to become professional firefighters.
Word got around and people started giving me calls and we just start helping people out. It was just like, all right, come meet me at Starbucks at 0900. Help you out with the application process. I'll help you with your resume. Come hike with me, come run with me.
Sarah Sindija is the Chief Operations and Finance Officer for the FFRP.
You see yourself differently. When you're protecting a home or protecting a community from a fire and someone comes up to you, hugging you and crying and thanking you for saving their life, that's transformative to your identity. When you're incarcerated, you're locked away, you're put away, you're told that you're unsafe. And to come and serve in a field where you are contributing to public safety, that is transformative.
It means everything to me. My son, when he sees me walk in, he's like, firefighter, firefighter. That's how he says it. He's 4 now, he says it more clear, but he looks up to me. My daughters, they're scared. My wife is scared, but they're proud at the same time. They think and feel I can do anything because of what I've been through and what I came from.
Brandon was incarcerated at 16 years old on gun charges and served 9 years. Using training he received with the FFRP, Brandon will soon be starting a job as a hotshot firefighter, part of a traveling crew that tackles the toughest blazes. For people like him, the FFRP is a bridge over the barriers to post-incarceration employment.
How does the FFRP create that bridge?
They're providing pretty much not just free education, it's paid education. We know you can't be here for free because you have to check in with parole. You have to pay your mom rent for that room you're living in to help with the gas and electricity.
Come on now. Come on, you can do it, Key. Come on now.
43-15.
Got this. Yeah.
My name is Deton Harris, and I'm the superintendent of the proof.
Deton first met Royal at an inmate fire camp. When he was released, Deton's firefighting prospects seemed like a long shot.
It's like a reality check because we went to every fire station trying to just tell them our story and let them know that we're different people and that we just want a chance to prove to society that we can be great people.
How were you received, though, when you started hitting up the fire stations?
It was terrible. They told me I was gonna never be a fireman. They looked at my little certifications that I had and they pretty much just told me that it wasn't gonna never happen. But a couple months later, I doubled back on them stations and let them know that I made it. So it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm born and raised in South Central LA. I never thought in a million years that somebody would be coming up to me telling me thank you, you know? Like, that's really humbling.
The FFRP also directly employs firefighters through its private for-hire team, dubbed the Buffalo Hand Crew.
A hand crew is a group of about 10 or 20 people. They hike in during a fire. Usually they have nothing but the tools on their back, and they're doing the intense manual labor that's involved with the fire, whether it's creating fuel breaks or smothering fires out.
The crew is named after the Buffalo Soldiers. These regiments of Black U.S. soldiers in the 19th and 20th centuries doubled as wildfire fighters.
What the Forest Service is doing is calling us, asking us for guys because they know that they come trained. So we're building a great reputation right now.
You gotta really understand when you walk out and have that uniform on, having that mentality, no matter where you are, no matter what you say, just knowing that you actually you a firefighter. You're not just you're just not a regular person anymore. You're actually a public servant.
One major barrier to becoming a professional firefighter after being released from incarceration is the inability to get an EMT license once you've been convicted of a felony. A California law signed by Governor Gavin Newsom in late 2020 allows people who served in fire camps to petition judges who can expunge convictions. But the process is difficult and uncertain. And for now, many fire camp veterans still face an uphill battle when trying to move into professional work.
Second chance employment is a no-brainer. We know that the #1 reason for recidivism is employment.
People in California is behind it. And they starting to see that, just because a person made a mistake doesn't mean that we should just throw them away to the wolves.
The FFRP's mission has attracted a lot of believers. They've received funding from large companies like Google and Verizon. Musician John Legend even delivered congratulations to FFRP's 2021 graduates.
As you are called upon to keep us all safe during the 2021 California wildfire season. We are so proud of your accomplishments and so grateful for your service.
Don't judge people because you never know what they really been through. It's people that has been, traumatized in so many different ways in life that you just wouldn't understand, and that led them to that poor choice or led them to making that decision that changed other people's lives, or it's complicated. Life is complicated. Just educate yourself on things that you don't know. Don't judge people. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Hello, my name is Lawrence Bartley. I'm the director of News Inside for the Marshall Project. Today we'll be discussing second chance employment. I'm here with two brilliant individuals who will talk about companies like Dave's Killer Bread, who afford people the opportunity to find employment after incarceration. So can you all tell me about second chance employment?
So second chance employment to me is an employer giving an individual with a background an opportunity for employment, for living wage, as well as an opportunity for growth, personally and professionally.
So can you explain how you came to take part in the second chance employment program ran by Dave's Killer Bread?
So I was actually looking for employment. I had just gotten out of prison after spending 7.5 years incarcerated. And I had been going to school for dental assisting, and I was applying for jobs. I was almost done with schooling, and I wasn't getting any phone calls back. And it really made me look at myself. I'm like, what's going on? Why am I not getting these phone calls back? Of course, they're doing background checks, right? I'm going to be working in the dental field. And I believe it was my cousin that suggested I apply at Dave's Killer Bread.
I found out about Second Chance Opportunity while I was finishing up my federal sentence at Sheridan, Oregon. And that was the talk of the compound if you were trying to change your life. While I was incarcerated, I made it very clear to myself that I had to give myself an advantage. So I started taking college courses. But when I was released from the federal system, it was nothing like I expected. The calls weren't coming in. School really slowed everything down. I forgot the part about having to have money to take care of myself while being free. But Dave's Killer Bread, they had an opportunity. I went and applied, and that became home.
So, there's many formerly incarcerated people that are brilliant. They have skills, but being incarcerated for a number of years, they don't have opportunity to develop the type of experience as their counterparts who aren't formerly incarcerated. So when they go to take on jobs, a lot of times they are told you can't have this job for the lack of experience. How do you think Dave's Killer Bread is handling that?
I was given the opportunity to do a marketing course, and I never thought in a million years that my employer was going to help me go to school. What employer does that?
Right.
So what about you?
Mainly the one-on-ones with the supervisors and management that have been in the situation that I've been in before, or that are understanding to our situations. All these people that believed in us and sat us down and had those one-on-one 20-minute conversations to be more articulate, to be more presentable, tuck your shirt in, take that frown off your face. What frown? That definitely shaped and put me in position to be contender for superintendent, for production supervisors.
I have to definitely agree with you. Teaching us how to be that productive member of society, but also within Dave's Killer Bread community. I was a community outreach coordinator for 8 years up until recently. And that role was very, very big for me. I had never really worked in the office. So I got some office skills, lots of computer skills that I didn't have. And I could walk down the hallway and be like, hey, how's it going? And everybody pretty much knew who I was. And to have that community feel, it's not just, oh, it's another day, it's another job.
Nice. So tell me, what is your current position again, Crystal?
Project coordinator for Dave's Killer Bread Foundation. The foundation started in 2015, and I've actually been working towards this position, and here I am.
What about you, Rassan? How long have you been in your current position?
So it's going on 6 years now. When the opportunity came up to be production supervisor in Mesa, Arizona, I jumped on it. I had already outgrown Portland, Oregon. That's where I committed my crime at. That's where my old friends were at. And I knew it was time to take my story somewhere else and to blossom and to be able to live. And I'm out here now and doing different speaking engagements, because there's 1,000 second chance people out there. But who's going to be that person to take that chance to give them that second chance?
So, Rassan, now you have the opportunity to hire formerly incarcerated people.
Yes.
How does that make you feel?
Man, you see, I can't stop smiling, man. That was the goal. And to feel it come together and to see the change in people after a few years, it's beautiful. Just like I'm pretty sure Crystal feels about talking to me and knowing those talks that we used to have and just seeing that it's worth it.
Also, you're teaching hiring supervisors right there with you. You're teaching them about hiring the right person for the position, not their background.
Right.
Because there's missed talent out there if you overlook someone with a background.
Are there any final words or thoughts any of you would like to say to individuals who are seeking employment and they don't know of the Second Chance Employment Program?
The main thing that I would want to tell people is change is possible. You know what I mean? You give somebody a second chance, they can come out here and be a pillar to their community.
My last words, I guess, would be to know there's hope and to let go of your own shame or doubt and show up every day as yourself. Show up and be a hard worker. I can only hope and pray that by me telling my story is making an impact, whether it's for an employee that needs a job or an employer that wants to see success stories.
Yes.
Crystal, Rasan, thank you for talking with me here today.
Thanks so much for joining us. We're here to further unpack the challenges faced by formerly incarcerated people as they work towards re-entry. I am joined by three experts in the field. Elizabeth Gaines is the CEO of the Osborne Association, a criminal justice service and reform organization that she has led since 1984. Keisha Middlemass is a professor of political science at Howard University and a Brookings Fellow. She is the author of Convicted and Condemned: The Politics and Policies of Prisoner Reentry. And Stanley Richards is the Deputy CEO of the Fortune Society and is the first formerly incarcerated person to be appointed as the first Deputy Commissioner of Programs and Operations at the New York City Department of Correction. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
It's great to be with you.
Keisha, if I can start with you. I'd love to understand how many people are currently incarcerated in the US and how does this number compare to other countries?
So the overall incarceration rate hovers around 2 million. It's a little bit lower today in terms of its relationship of how many people are incarcerated in the United States. We as a country far outpace other developed countries. Generally, the United States is compared to Russia, China, and countries that don't always count who are incarcerated.
And what percentage end up back in prison after release?
Generally, the data tells us that approximately 650 to 750,000 adults are released from jails, state prisons, federal prisons every single year. When you talk about the failure rate, studies demonstrate that between 65 and 68% will fail within the first 3 years.
What is the experience like when you leave incarceration? What kind of system is there for you? What are the first steps? Stanley, perhaps we can start with you.
And so I've been going to jail since I was a teenager and went through my adulthood. And I began to believe that incarceration was the way my life was going to be lived. I was going to be released. I was going to go back to the streets. I was going to go back to the behaviors that I've known all my life. And I was going to go into survival mode. And so my last incarceration, I really wanted to lead a different life, partly because when I was incarcerated, I went to school, I obtained my GED, I went to college, and I began to understand that all the messages I heard about who I am and what I'm worth and whether I'm smart enough to hold a job and whether I'm good enough to hold a job are all lies. And there was a level of confidence that I had in myself and my ability to remain hopeful and to stay focused so I didn't have to live that life. And so coming home, I was hopeful, as many people are when they come home. I haven't met anyone who said from the day one, I can't wait to go back. I just can't wait. It's like, I can't wait to go back. That's not how it happens.
I'm gonna say I sort of had that experience from another angle, which was that when my kid's dad came home after 25 years, we sort of watched it from the family perspective, which is why a lot of Osborne's programs focus on parenting, family reunification, visiting, because families are the reentry program of first and last resort. That's the 24/7 reentry, and very often prison phrase that, which is why we have so many people not coming home to something. But I also just want to point out, even with respect to recidivism and those kinds of numbers that people fall in love with, it's not a monolithic group. So people who've done significant time for homicide have almost a zero recidivism rate. And in New York, the majority of people who go back to prison are going back for violations of their supervision, not a new serious crime. So we have to kind of break out what is it that makes it so difficult, which Stanley pointed to, for people to someone can be violated because they change residence, because they lose their housing. So there's all kinds of ways in which we have to combine what Stanley is saying with understanding it's not monolithic. By the way, 1 in every 2 adults in America has had an immediate family member who's been incarcerated. So it's not a rare experience.
One of our residents at the Fortune Castle once said, when you come home, and he did about 32 years, he said, when you come home, you have to learn how to take off the jackets of survival. The jackets that you had to use to survive in those environments, to come out here in an environment, to be socially connected, to be vulnerable, to be trusting, to be engaging. I mean, when I came home, that was one of the things I had to learn. I had to learn that the way I survived in prison was to have a very aggressive look and to have a very aggressive way of handling myself. And when I came home, I had to understand that when I engaged with people, if people saw that, people would have a certain reaction, a reaction that I don't want them to have. But you got to learn how to take off those jackets, and it doesn't happen overnight.
And families need to understand that. Otherwise, I've been part of a lot of groups of other women whose husbands and partners are incarcerated and come home. And sometimes they would call me and say, I think he's losing his mind because he's putting his clothes under the bed. And I said, yeah, that's how they ironed inside. It's not crazy. It's just, institutional.
So if you're coming home and it's winter, you have to put a full wardrobe together. And the family is burdened with doing that. Yes, there are places where you can get inexpensive clothes secondhand, but the idea of putting a wardrobe together or adding another mouth to feed, the space for bedding, like someone to sleep. And so someone has to, when they come home, is putting together literally their entire lives from start to finish. And that is a financial burden that, as Liz said, families take on. But we also have to think of those individuals that don't have families. And those individuals are actually worse off in the sense that serving long sentences, family members, parents die, their extended family move, or they get married and the new person has never met their loved one and there's conflict there. But this idea that the Department of Corrections really assumes families will help people, their loved ones, when they come home. And there's those two big groups. The ones that have family support, regardless of how much or how little support, is one thing. And then there's a group of people that just don't have loved ones and even one or two people to welcome them home.
And there are also things that prisons can do to make it more possible for people to stay connected to families. New York is quite an exception in a good way in that our state maximum security prisons have visits 7 days a week. They have overnight visiting. It doesn't go that way.
That brings me to my next question perfectly. What are other countries doing more successfully to run, good reentry programs where there's less of a chance that you're going to end up back in prison? What are different models that you've seen that you think we could learn from?
The reentry process in the United States is really supported by nonprofit organizations and volunteers, and people having to raise money separately and apart because we as a society in the United States don't think about reentry. Billions of dollars go into incarceration and hundreds of dollars go into the reentry funding in sort of comparison, where other countries are balancing, this person will come home, we want them to be a good person, in quotation marks, in society, so let's help them. And America doesn't seem to have the help mentality.
Well, we don't think people can change as part of our,
great point.
You have to remember England sent the criminals to Australia and we got the Puritans. So there is that punitive thing. When the warden of the prison I was in visiting in Sweden, I said, you really believe, my daughter actually was with me, said, you really believe people can change? He said, well, of course. Why else would I do this?
Just imagine, as Liz said, you are defined by the worst moment in your life. That's the banner you carry. It wouldn't be appropriate for you. It shouldn't be appropriate for people with criminal convictions. And it shouldn't be appropriate for us as a society to allow that to happen.